Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the week's going well. Let's move on to Sub-Saharan Africa. Sudan's shifting calculus of power. President Bashir's declaration of a year-long state of emergency in Sudan indicates that he has opted for now to take the route of greater repression, to quell the popular protests that have been unfolding across the country since December 2018. Bashir's long tenure in power can be attributed to his cultivation of three main pillars of support: the military, the National Congress Party, and an embrace of political Islam. The current protests are straining each of those pillars and how they relate to one another, leading to some shifting alliances. Protesters have explicitly expressed their dismay at the politicization of Islam. The Sudanese population has historically embraced Sufism, which domesticates and internalizes the teaching of Islam to the African context. Women in particular have participated in sizable numbers. Women protesters have also indirectly showed their rejection of Islamist fundamentalism by dressing in Sudanese dress, with the traditional toby headscarves rather than the strict hijabi dress as prescribed by ultra-Orthodox Islam. And saying, internal dynamics are reshaping the pillars of power in Sudan, making it difficult to predict how the current crisis will unfold. The peaceful protests calling for a transitional technocratic government leading to genuine elections are an attempt to provide an alternative pathway to stability and peace in Sudan. Doing so would be a break from Sudan's historical legacy of power changing only through uprisings and military coup d'etat. 21st of January, I said Bashir is a political Harry Houdini. Otherwise, he would not have lasted more than 3 decades. But I said it's clear these are the last days or the end times. And I quoted this old Sudanese revolutionary song, "We sing in our prison as you tremble in your castle." The Comoros Supreme Court declared Azali Assoumani's victory in last week's election as official. He was meant to have won 59% of the vote, but his election has been disputed by the opposition, which claimed the ballot was rigged. President Kagame has told Jeune Afrique that he foiled a terror attack from Uganda. Revelations come to add fuel to the fire between Rwanda and Uganda. Kagame tells Jeune Afrique that his government has multiple and irrefutable evidence that President Museveni has offered his help and logistical facilities to individuals and groups to start a rebellion against Rwanda. This doesn't seem to be bedding down anytime soon. Congo, Ebola outbreak spreading faster than ever. The number of cases hit a record 57 the following week, then jumped to 72 last week, said the WHO. Previous spikes of around 50 cases per week were documented in late January and mid-November. I wrote about this before. It's always all about viruses. The numbers don't have to be that big because it's about escape velocity. And viruses exhibit non-linear and exponential characteristics. Gregory Smith, who I interviewed a while ago, says we've shifted from a narrative of debut Eurobonds to one of repeat Eurobond issuance in Africa. With Ghana's issuance on March 26, the asset class reached $102 billion in the euro and dollar. South African all shares up 8.38% this year. Dollar versus rand, the rand firmed up a little bit because of all this euphoria, but I still think it's a sell. Egyptian pound 17.3237. ExxonMobil is actively divesting in Nigeria. One source who was briefed on the divestment plans said. Nigerian all shares down 3.83% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 3.75% this year. UAP Holdings Limited has posted a 518 million shilling, that's $5.18 million, loss, the first in about a decade. 166% decline in performance. The CEO says performance was impacted by a tough operating environment in Kenya and the wider region. We have had to let go of accounts we couldn't price properly. Gross written premium down 1.8%. Net claims payable rose by 10%. The increase was largely driven by more prudent reserving in our short-term insurance businesses, claims deterioration in South Sudan where inflation remains high, and increased reserves in our life business. Property write-downs $6.04 million because of reduced rent. And as I said, it was an annus horribilis, and insurance companies are heavily correlated to the stock market performance, and you can see that's hurt them. Equity Bank, which reported a 5% increase in full-year earnings per share, maintained its dividend for the third consecutive year and is up 23.39% year to date. The CEO, Dr. Mwangi, says we are focused on Ethiopia because that market could possibly open in 2020 or 2021. The entry strategy is through acquisition, given that it is a big market, and big markets you enter by acquisition. So he's obviously looking at that. Nairobi all shares up 13.76% year to date, trades on a price earnings ratio of 12.54. The top performing stocks, this is the top 10, is led by I&M Bank, NIC Bank, Longhorn, Safaricom, and Equity Bank. Worst performing, this is the 10 worst performers. Of course, Kenya Airways is bringing up the rear. And finally, the NSE 20 is up 0.94% this year, and that in part because of things like Kenya Airways, which are in the basket. Once again, thank you for stopping by. Do join me in the evening from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Metropole TV. Please give me your feedback via their handle, my handle, and please interact. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.